new here. I'm a spokesperson for Fluoride Free Lethbridge. We're a citizens group aiming to have fluoride removed, fluoridation of Lethbridge city water ceased. Not necessary and toxic process for us all. So I think most of you have been here before, so you kind of know the gist of our general information. Tonight we of course have a special guest speaker, Fay Ash from Calgary. Fay was instrumental in having fluoridation ceased in Calgary, and she's, as you'll know when you meet her, she's just a concerned citizen and a grandmother trying to do the right thing by everybody in her community. We did a lot of research on the science and potential health implications of fluoridation, and knew that it was something that she had to oppose. And she was also instrumental, interesting enough, in having Dr. James Beck, one of the authors of The Case Against Fluoride, realize the problem with fluoridation. He was a mainstream doctor until Fay approached him numerous times with published studies in science and said, you have to look at this, you have to look at this, you have to look at this. And finally he took an objective look at it, and he became North American and worldwide respected authority on what's wrong with water fluoridation. Without any further wait, this is Fay Ash from Calgary. We welcome her, and we'd like to appreciate.
I'm very honored to have been asked to come here, and when I hear you talk, I think I should go home because you guys know all this stuff. But I had two four-drawer file cabinets full of anti-fluoride information, and I saved a lot of material. And in Calgary we did it, and we can do it, but you have to know how to deal with the politics. So I'm going to, first of all, share this video that we watched in the early part of, I think it was after 1989, when they had this quickie plebiscite, referendum, and suddenly we were fluoridated. And so people got really up in arms. And this is a video by Dr. Waldbot, George Waldbot from Germany. I think it's from the 1950s, and he's showing what it does to the cells. Now, it's a very old video, but it's very indicative, and maybe something you can look up on internet, because it is on the net. So, just hit it there. Okay. Well, you do deserve pure, clean water. And we have to stop talking about fluoridation. We have to start talking about ethics and accountability. And we have to challenge these past decisions that were made by ignorant city councilors. We have to forgive them for what they did, but we have to move ahead. So I'll try to go through at a clip here, because you've covered much of this material. Governments are a mirror of our own apathy. In order to understand these complex issues, we have to look at our attitudes. What are our attitudes towards health? Will governments give us health?
No.
Are we aware of what's going on? Obviously, you people have done your research and you know what's going on. And so it's our responsibility to help the others in our communities to understand what's going on. We have to appreciate our beautiful water that we once had, and appreciate the people who are working for literacy, like Dr. Beck and many others. We start with appropriate actions in our own backyard, and we learn the skills of advocacy. How do we talk to people? How do we get people on side? Is it time for Lethbridge to demand a fluoridectomy?
Yep.
Let's put that word all over the city. We want a fluoridectomy. Are you mad as hell?
Yes.
Good. Democracy is not a spectator sport. We're looking for truth. pure, unvarnished truth. So we do our own research and get informed. Truth is self-evident and it cannot be debated. And it survives over time. The presence of truth in the lives of the people of a society is inversely proportional to the presence of tyranny. And we have to start using these harsh words. People will cringe. People will call you radical. Well, I'd rather be radical than a zombie. So, as Sean explained, Mark explained that in 1952, the Alberta government amended the Public Health Act so that cities could be fluoridated, requiring a two-thirds majority vote. In most tax bills, if you're going to have your lane paved and citizens get together, they require a two-thirds majority to expend any money bill. Well, why would they lower it for something like health? They did that in 1966 deliberately so that they could impose this on the public. So we want to look at facts, not opinions, and not beliefs. When we're talking to people, you tell them all about the deleterious effects of fluoridation, and they say, well, that's just your opinion. How we've been brainwashed in our society, right? We have to learn what these words mean. Look at the etymology of beliefs. What's in the middle of a belief? Many of our beliefs are based on lies. So we have to go to facts. I like this bumper sticker. You are not entitled to your ignorant opinion. Especially if that political or professional opinion causes harm. This is a photo I took in the water treatment plant in Calgary. We were taken in by a whistleblower, showing the caustic, corrosive hydrofluorosilicic acid eating through the pipes. 4 questions. Is it safe? Is it effective for fixing health, tooth decay, or whatever? Is it ethical? We have to throw that word around all the time. Do alternatives exist? Of course. My mother used to brush with, baking soda, or salt, or tea tree oil, toothpaste. We have so many wonderful things that we can do to look after our health, right? Hydrofluorosilicic acid, H2SiF6, is trucked into our water treatment plants. When it's on the highway, they call it hazardous waste. So how come they can put hazardous waste in our drinking water? In Calgary, every councillor was given this book. And this book was sort of sponsored by Dr. Beck and his work, his professional. These are real health professionals doing honest work of integrity. And we have to start demanding integrity and accountability. It was also, there were ethical dentists in Calgary who helped finance that book. Hydrofluorosilicic acid is not natural, despite what we've been told. And I'm sure all of you know about the fluoridealert.org website. I think there's a section there where they refer to the 50 reasons why fluoride should not be in your drinking water. This is the fluoride tank at the Bears Paw Water Treatment Plant in Calgary. And as this gentleman said, it's lined with rubber. It's about 2 stories tall and just massive. And they paint the pipes pink out of sarcasm. Something that's pink is... This is the Cargill fertilizer plant in Florida. We used to get our fluoride from the Cominco plant in Calgary until that shut down. I also wanted to pass around this little present that a lady from England gave this to me in the mid-1990s, sodium fluoride. And when you look at it, please observe the poison symbol. And then there's this one, the same thing, but it's talking about cockroach poison and killing lice on chickens. So, would you like to pass it around? I put it in these jars and I keep them in my garage because it's terrible.
We'll have fluoride everywhere.
Water is the basis of all life. And Southern Albertans loved our beautiful mountain water. We have to tell people, remind people of that story. You know, people in Calgary, the grandmothers and grandfathers and elderly people, when we had those plebiscites, they got out there and they fought. I can remember as a kid listening to my mom going on talk radio and howling about fluoridation. And they kept those plebiscites, they kept the water clean in Calgary and in Lethbridge. Our human body is 72% water. In that video, he was showing cells being impacted at a rate of, was it one? Yeah, which is far more dilute than what we have in our city tap water. Another important point is our brain is 85% water, so it affects our brain even more. River water, you sent me an email about, who was it said that that fluoride was, it was one of your local politicians, was it the mayor?
I think it might have been the local health officer who made a statement regarding, does anybody remember the exact wording? I think it was Dr. Sutor.
He was saying that fluoride is totally safe and
naturally occurring in the river.
Yes, naturally occurring in the river. Well, what is occurring in the river is not hydrofluorosilicic acid, it's calcium fluoride. And we have to correct those errors. Local rivers vary. In the Bow River, I think it's 0.3 parts per million. In the Elbow, it's 0.1. I think in Edmonton, it's a little bit higher. We're warned on toothpaste tubes not to swallow it, and yet, why is Big Brother putting it in our water? And this one, stop poisoning us with fluoridation. Wherever there's an O, let's put that poison sign. It is a poison. One of my friends in Edmonton, who is an activist, said to me, Fay, you can't call it poison. Well, they're still fluoridated up there. They're politically correct.
Fay, just to remark on that last comment on this sodium fluoride you're passing around.
Yes.
What does it say here? Serious risk of poisoning if taken internally. Avoid breathing dust, avoid contact with skin or eyes, and there's a nice skull and crossbones there.
Yeah.
One of the other poisons being passed around, they suggest as an antidote to, you could even use ground wall plaster, which at the time had asbestos in it. So that would be the antidote. It shows you how much they knew about health.
Just take a minute here and ask if there's any comments or questions thus far. Because we did want to do that. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So is there anybody that had anything to say or ask at this point?
Did I hear you say Edmonton was still had fluoride?
Yes. Yeah, and they're trying to get it out. And Red Deer still has fluoride, they're trying to get it out.
What about Medicine Hat?
Medicine Hat never had fluoride.
Oh, wow.
And the story goes that Fay tells me that they were concerned about the levels of toxicity in their water coming downstream from Calgary because Calgary was fluoridating and putting all kinds of other chemicals in the water, and they didn't want to poison the river any further. So they refused fluoridation.
And Mark, can I add that our regional health manager, where does she live?
Dr. Ada Bennett lives in Medicine Hat, and she says, don't worry about the fluoride in Lethbridge. Medicine Hat.
Now, it's all fine and dandy, all that you're saying.
Yes.
Are you going to give us any opposite messages that you got? I came down with cancer 2 years ago, and in November 2011, I finished my treatment. A month later, I left for my daughter's graduation in Australia. To avoid the hassle of going through, I didn't take the fluoride with me. This is liquid fluoride.
Yes.
That I was told I had to take, and I sort of thought, well, I was a little hesitant about it, but I didn't feel I had much choice.
Yeah.
Because I was told that radiation plays hell with your teeth.
Right.
He had checked me over. It was one of the 8 trips I had to make before I started cancer treatment in Calgary.
Yeah.
I had to make 8 trips, 3 of them to the dentist to get my teeth all checked out and filled and everything done A1 before I would start.
Yeah.
From December the 5th, I took off for Australia. I came back on January the 3rd, and on the 23rd of January, I went back to the dentist in Calgary.
Yes.
And I had 3 holes in my teeth in that length of time without it. He gave me heck.
Uh-huh.
And I'll tell you, I've been back on it again since, because I don't want holes in my teeth.
Right. Well, there is.
So there is some good.
Well, there's data that shows that there is and actually it depends on who you ask, but I think there's a larger amount of consensus that it's a temporary effect on the enamel of your teeth. It does rebuild the enamel matrix, but it's a temporary effect. But what they're not telling you is that fluoride, when ingested, is actually displacing calcium in your body because it has the same valence charge as calcium. So it actually occupies the parking spot of calcium, which is why fluoride is linked to stage 2 skeletal fluorosis, published peer-reviewed study, to osteosarcoma, bone cancer. They know that it's doing that because of the calcium displacement factor. There's other things that link into that. If you're low in iodine, if you're low in selenium, if you're low in, what's the third trace mineral? Iodine, selenium, boron. And magnesium is important. Some of these other trace minerals too, it affects the electrical bonding nature of your body, but you'll retain more fluoride if you don't have those trace minerals. And they know that too much fluoride in your bone undoubtedly causes bone cancer and stage 2 skeletal fluorosis, which is often misdiagnosed as arthritis because it mimics the symptoms exactly. So a lot of the diagnosis that we see as arthritis really isn't such. So you do get that temporary effect, but we have to appreciate where your doctor is coming from. He's not doing that intentionally to you. In medical school, he's relying on studies that were presented to him that says this is the appropriate way to protect your patient in these situations to help his teeth. But when you start examining where the data was generated from, you find that there is no independent data, peer-reviewed independent data ever published on the efficacy or the safety of fluoride. Any and all data that is being used by public health right now is industry-funded data. However, there are multiple studies in peer-reviewed journals that prove the opposite. And there's in fact 2 double-blind studies that prove the opposite. There's no double-blind studies on the profluoride side. So when you start weighing that evidence, you have to realize that your doctor might just be misinformed. There is a temporary effect, but it has everything to do with diet, and especially having gone through the treatment that you did. You've displaced nutrient in your body. It's had this trauma on your body. Yes, your teeth are going to be affected, but it's nutrient displacement. So a lot of people are saying we have to fluoridate to protect the children. No, we have to teach parents how to feed their children something other than Pop-Tarts and Coke for breakfast. And if we do that, then they'll have just fine teeth. In Uganda, where they hardly have a dentist, if they have any at all, they don't have toothbrushes, they certainly don't have fluoridated water, and they don't have fluoridated toothpaste, they have better teeth than we do. If you look at World Health Organization statistics, they have less cavities and tooth problems than we have here. Why? Because they don't have processed food. So we have to get our priorities straight. If we're chasing this little tiny benefit of temporary building of the matrix of the enamel of your teeth, but at what cost? The calcium displacement in your body, thyroid imbalance, pineal gland disorders, all these other things to go along with it, but we're getting this little benefit, when really that benefit could be had nutritionally without the side effects.
So Mark, so when Mike was talking about this, did your dentist tell you to just go home and drink 8 glasses of tap water, and that's the fluoride?
Yeah,
It's a different fluoride.
Right.
Gave you, right?
This has nothing got to do with the water, it's a liquid, it's a gel.
No, but
And
what
did
kind of
you
fluoride?
topically apply it to your teeth, or was it ingested?
I have to put a couple of drops on false
Yes.
impressions every night.
Right.
Okay,
and
so that's
just
not-
hold it for 10 minutes in my
Right,
mouth.
and so that's a different matter, and like, and we're, really, I think the water fluoridation debate isn't, like, we're not taking on that, like, that's a whole separate scientific argument there, whether or not it's beneficial to you and to what degree. But apart from that, any and all data, even if it's industry funded, suggests that fluoride only benefits your teeth through topical application, never through ingestion. If you ingested enough fluoride through your drinking water to actually have the amount of fluoride that would be effective to affect your teeth in your saliva, you would be dead. If you had that high of fluoride in your body. That's why kidney dialysis patients, if there's been some famous screw-ups where the nurse used tap water instead of distilled water, the dialysis patient dies. Because the only thing standing between you and death from fluoride is your kidney. And if your kidney isn't there working, then you die. That's the degree that fluoride is toxic. And that's not a secret. Everybody knows that. But our kidneys do a great job of kicking fluoride out, which is why all of us in this room are alive after drinking some fluoridated water. But we have to start examining this benefit-cost ratio and saying, is this reasonable, or are we just being marketed by the phosphate fertilizer industry, who doesn't want to dispose of their waste for over $1 a kilogram, which is what's going to cost them. They sell it to us at $100,000 a tanker. Like, we're spending $100,000 a year in Lethbridge or more to put fluoride in our water. And if you really want fluoride, I'm sure your gel is like a fraction of that cost. We can provide that to everybody if that really is what people believed was effective. But why is it put in our water, which 98% of it goes into the river, right? Which is an environmental toxin, which is why they scrub it out of the smokestack to begin with. So, you know, I have sympathy for your situation, but I also encourage you to dig into the literature and find out where the sources, who's paying for it. Like, it really is, it sounds cynical, but you don't have to follow the money, and you have to see, is it independent scientific study or is it funded study? And that's where I vote for independent.
May I ask him whether he questioned it or not? What kind of fluoride are
Right.
you giving me?
Wait.
Did you question it?
No, I didn't.
Because when I found out if we deny people of fluoride, I asked the pharmacist if people can get it. He said, do you sell it? He said, yes, but you'll need a prescription. And then my second question was, what kind? And he said, sodium fluoride. That's not what's going in our water.
Yeah,
You should question what you're being given.
in any other medicine, can we change like the molecular structure of a compound and say it's the same? You know, you change one atom in the molecule and you turn benefit into poison. Well, how is it that hydrofluorosilicic acid has no testing on it yet? It's just that it has fluoride in it, so it's good. Any and all data that your doctor relies on, which let's say it's valid, just for argument's sake, is done on sodium fluoride. And calcium fluoride has been used for a lot of the safety tests. But we're talking about a completely different compound here, which also has tagged onto it heavy metal contamination and radioactive contamination, because when you mine phosphate from the ground, it's unpredictable what you're running into in that resource. And everything that isn't phosphate is being volatilized at that stack, which is required to be scrubbed out of it, otherwise they're going to be fined for polluting the environment with toxic waste. So they wet scrub that out. And that's the product that we're putting in our water with all its partners on it. And when I asked the city, have you ever subjected your source to third-party independent testing on those levels? The answer was no. They said, no, it's got NSF 60 approval, that's all we need to know. That's my job. If it's NSF 60, I buy it. If it isn't, I don't buy it. But NSF 60, what's that, and when was it tested? We're talking about variability in the mined resource. Like, it's not, you mine from here and you mine 100 meters away or a kilometer away. It's completely different strata of rocks.
I'm curious about that conspiracy word. And if you look at the work by Christopher Bryson and Joel Griffiths with fluoride teeth and the atomic bomb, The first lawsuits against the USA bomb program were not about radiation, but about fluoride damage and fluoride poisoning. And this is the start of the conspiracy of military secrecy between the military and medical science, bunkering the position. And you know, they don't want to admit they made a mistake. Just look at it from their professional viewpoint. If suddenly any one of them were to admit that they had poisoned people, imagine the lawsuits. So this is a conundrum, right? Fluoridation has always been controversial from the get-go, and we have to point that out to people and get them on side to understand this. The term conspiracy theory has been harnessed into a pejorative weapon in which to bludgeon free speech, healthy skepticism, independent thinking. Don't talk about it. There are better ways to deal with tooth decay. There's enough fluoride in toothpaste if people want it. Why are they dumping it into our water? It's a criminal act. If you or I were to put poison in drinking water, we would go to jail. We have to start using this word. And many people in Calgary, when it came to the public presentations and in the letters to councillors, started using that kind of language. The evidence mounts. You know the story about John Calhoun from Auckland, New Zealand. He was the chief dental officer, and when he started to research it, of course he was retired, he changed his mind about it. So there are many converts and many ethical people who are standing up exposing it. The evidence of harm is just escalating. Sore bones, hip fractures, on and on, skin problems. Every cell of our body, we are being poisoned at the cellular level. If we do what is right, the big brother tyranny will end today, but we have to be fearless. Everything we do is political. Doing nothing is a political act. And we have to look after these little kids, right? Talk to people. Help them join the dots. I had a friend who made a presentation at the Calgary hearing at City Hall, and this was her personal experience. She realized that her son had a limp, or on half of his body was kind of twisted, and she never really knew why. Now she realizes it was probably fluoridation that did it. And she had this picture of him limping along in this little parade, showing his twisted little body. Do we trust these ads made by chemical companies? It's time for us to rethink the propaganda from the 1950s. All of this money that comes either from industry or from our tax dollars. And as was said before, the tooth decay trends in both fluoridated and unfluoridated countries has been decreasing, probably because of better nutrition and dental hygiene and maybe access to dentists. Who knows what the reasons are, but tooth decay is not the massive problem that we are being told it is.